You're listening to Audiology. Support this channel by becoming a member and be sure to submit your requests for topics in the comments below. Following the arrest of the Girondist deputies on June 2, 1793, a wave of uprisings known as the Federalist revolts erupted in several French cities, including Lyon, Avignon, Nîmes, and Marseille. In the port city of Toulon, supporters of the Federalist cause managed to oust the local Jacobin club leader, only to be overtaken by a larger force of royalists. As news of Marseille being retaken by revolutionaries spread, along with the harsh retaliations they enacted there, the royalist leadership in Toulon, under Baron Xavier Lebré d'Imbert, sought help from an Anglo-Spanish naval force. On August 28th, the British and Spanish admirals Sir Samuel Hood and Juan de Langara answered the call, landing 13,000 soldiers from Britain, Spain, Naples, and Sardinia. Baron d'Imbert then handed over control of Toulon's port to the British Navy. Toulon raised the royal standard, the fleur-de-lis, on October 1st, and d'Imbert proclaimed the young Louis XVII as the King of France. This move put the French Republic in a critical position because Toulon held a significant naval arsenal and was home to 26 ships of the line, roughly a third of the French Navy's entire fleet. Without Toulon, the French were in a tough spot to hold their own against the Allies, especially the British, on the sea. Moreover, losing Toulon could embolden more uprisings against the Republic. Even though France had amassed a large army through mass conscription, the Republic faced a significant challenge in rebuilding its navy, once the third largest in Europe, should the Allies and the Royalists manage to destroy or capture a substantial part of it. Recapturing Toulon was not just a matter of strategic importance, but also crucial to maintaining the prestige of the revolution and the viability of the naval base. General Jacques-François Dugommier was in awe of Napoleon Bonaparte's abilities during the Siege of Toulon, expressing that words couldn't do justice to Bonaparte's combination of technical skill, intelligence, and bravery in a letter to the Minister of War, Jean Bouchotte. In September, General Jean-François Carteau's troops, known as the Carmagnols, after successful operations in Avignon, Marseille, and Ollioules, converged on Toulon. They joined forces with 6,000 men from the Alpine Maritime Army, led by General Jean-François Cornu de la Poppe, who had recently captured La Valette du Var and aimed to take the Montferrand forts to the city's east. Their numbers were bolstered by 3,000 sailors under Admiral Jean-René César de Saint-Julien de Chabon, who decided to support their cause instead of the British, and an additional 5,000 soldiers under General La Poppe to reclaim Toulon from the Army of Italy. The operation faced a setback when the chief of artillery, Elzéar Auguste Cousin de Dommartin, was injured. Napoleon Bonaparte, then a young captain, was assigned to the role despite a lack of mutual respect between him and Dommartin. This was facilitated by Bonaparte's connections, notably Augustin Robespierre and Antoine Christophe Salicetti. Despite their strained relationship, Bonaparte efficiently rallied an artillery force, securing 100 guns by leveraging local support and compelling retired officers back into service. He ingeniously trained infantry to manage these artillery pieces, although he faced challenges with the competencies of his officers, prompting him to suggest a new appointment for commanding artillery operations to the Committee of Public Safety. Bonaparte then focused on capturing key forts by initially targeting Les Guillettes and Balaguier, crucial for cutting off maritime resupply to the besieged forces. Despite the initial reluctance from Carteau and a failed attempt by a weak detachment, the British, sensing the threat, fortified the area, labeling it Little Gibraltar. Dissatisfied with his limited resources, Bonaparte amplified his artillery firepower, and by October orchestrated a massive bombardment strategy against strategic forts. Eventual leadership changes saw François-Amédée d'Oppet replace Carteau, only to be succeeded by Dugommier, who embraced Bonaparte's tactics wholeheartedly. The siege escalated with intense bombardments and the construction of strategically positioned batteries. A determined assault by Dugommier Bonaparte, now a colonel, and their forces culminated in significant breakthroughs, capturing pivotal positions including Little Gibraltar, even as Bonaparte sustained an injury. The victory allowed for crucial artillery placement by Marmont, leading to further successes by La Poppe, and the conclusive evacuation of Allied forces orchestrated by Commodore Sidney Smith under Admiral Hood's orders, including the destruction of their arsenal and delivery fleet. Langara gave Don Pedro Cotiella the order to take 3 boats to the arsenal for the purpose of destroying the French fleet. Sir Sidney Smith, who had just arrived, offered to help with his ship, the Swallow, and 3 British boats. Cotiella's mission was to sink 2 important ships in Toulon, one being a disarmed British frigate from the American Revolutionary War called the Montreal, and the other a French frigate named the Iris. These vessels were crucial because they held all the gunpowder for the fleet and were kept at a safe distance from the city due to the risk of explosion. His next task was to go into the old arsenal and destroy the ships there, but he found the dock gates securely locked and guarded by 800 freed galley slaves who were likely to support the enemy Republicans. To prevent them from interfering, Smith aimed his guns at them during the operation. Despite being fired on by Republican cannons, Smith and his team were unharmed. As night fell, Republican troops added gunfire from the shore, which Smith countered with grape shot from his boats. At 8 p.m., Captain Charles Hare took the fire ship HMS Vulcan into the new arsenal. Smith positioned the ship among the French line of ships and ignited it at 10 p.m. Unfortunately, an early explosion seriously injured Hare as he tried to escape. At the same time, other teams set fire to the warehouses and storage areas on shore, causing a massive blaze in the harbor and sending one last shot at the French on shore. As the fire spread, Smith started to retreat, but as they passed the Iris, it unexpectedly exploded, destroying 2 British boats and causing casualties. Seeing that the new arsenal was ablaze but the old arsenal was mostly unscathed, Smith tried to return but was repelled by Republican soldiers who had taken it over. Instead, he focused on 2 disarmed ships, Heroes and Themistocles, which were being used as prison hulks. Initially, the French Republican prisoners on board resisted the British attempt to set the ships on fire. However, after witnessing the destruction at the arsenal, they agreed to be taken to shore safely while Smith's men set the ships on fire, completing their mission amidst the chaos. As Smith had to pull back because all the potential targets were either ablaze or captured by the French, he wasn't leaving alone. Accompanied by a flotilla of small boats carrying refugees from Toulon and Neapolitan soldiers who had gotten separated during the withdrawal, Smith encountered yet another unexpected explosion. This time, as they sailed past the second powder hulk named Montreal, it exploded. Remarkably, though they were close enough to be hit by the debris, none of Smith's men were harmed, and they managed to rejoin the British fleet waiting offshore without any more problems. While Smith and his boats were engaged in their mission, Admiral Hood had given orders to Captain George Elphinston, of His Majesty's ship Robust, and Captain Benjamin Hallowell, of His Majesty's ship Leviathan, to carry out the evacuation of Allied troops from the shore. They were joined by His Majesty's ship Courageux, under the command of Captain William Waldegrave, even though the ship was in the middle of repairs, including fixing a damaged rudder. Despite this setback, Courageux was still able to join the evacuation effort, managing to leave the harbor with a replacement rudder being towed behind by 2 smaller boats. Unfortunately, His Majesty's ship Conflagration, which was also under repair, couldn't sail and had to be destroyed during the evacuations. By the morning of December 19th, Elphinstone's squadron had successfully evacuated all Allied soldiers from the city, and they didn't lose a single person in the process. In addition to the soldiers, the British squadron and their boats also took on board thousands of French Royalist refugees. These people had rushed to the waterfront, realizing that the city was about to be overtaken by the Republicans. The ship Robust was the last to leave, carrying over 3,000 civilians from the harbor, while the Princess Royal, waiting further out, had another 4,000 on board. Altogether, the British fleet rescued a total of 14,877 people from Toulon. Witnesses on the ships described scenes of chaos at the waterfront, where desperate civilians were trampled or drowned as they scrambled to escape. Meanwhile, the advancing Republican soldiers fired into the crowd, adding to the horror of those fleeing for their lives. On December 19th, the convention's troops made their way into the city, setting the stage for what would turn out to be a brutal crackdown on the Royalists. Paul Barras and Stanislas Fréron led this merciless suppression, resulting in the death of between 700 and 800 prisoners, who were either shot or killed with bayonets at Toulon's Champ de Mars. During this time, Napoleon Bonaparte, who later received medical attention from Jean-François Hernandez for his injuries, was not present at these killings. Shortly after, on December 22nd, Bonaparte was promoted to brigade general and set off for Nice to take up his new role as the artillery commander for the Army of Italy, leaving Toulon behind. A gate in Toulon, part of the city's old walls and now bearing a commemorative plaque, stands as a reminder of Bonaparte's departure. This gate is known as the Porte d'Italie. Following these events as a form of retribution, the convention decided to rename the city Port-la-Montagne in honor of the mountain faction. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more content.